Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Jaren and this is D&D Behind the Scenes, a show in which you can follow along with me as I prepare to run a session of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Specifically in this series, I am running the Wizards of the Coast Publish Adventure, Spelljammer Academy, and Spelljammer Light of Xerixis. Now, today we're doing our session number 5, and I actually, in going back to do some editing of a couple of past videos, past sessions of this campaign, I realized I had a bit of an error, and in going to edit them, realized that 2 of the videos had no sound at all. And I suddenly had that sinking feeling in my stomach like, oh, what did I do wrong? And I think what happened was, in a recent update of OBS, which is what I use to record here, it restored some default settings. I didn't realize that, and one of the settings was it restored my default audio input. So I have 2 full videos that have no sound because I forgot to change it to the correct input. Should be good now. Everything is good, but I didn't want to record after the fact and try to make it look like, oh yeah, this is totally legitimate prep for the session. But even though I've already had the session, wanted to keep it true and authentic because now I have all the knowledge of what happened during the session. It's not really prep anymore. So I'm just going to take the loss, learn from my mistakes, and unfortunately not have a complete series from start to finish for this campaign. But it's whatever. We move on. We adapt just like we do in D&D. And I'm going to give my best shot at recapping since then. And we'll continue on with today's prep. So a lot has happened in the last couple sessions. I had a really interesting one-on-one with Archibald, our GIF artificer, who was looking to speak with his supervisor, who they both kind of crashed at Spelljammer Academy. His supervisor was apprehended and is now being kept prisoner at Spelljammer Academy. He wanted to go talk to him and see, like, hey, what's going on? What are my next orders? And didn't roll well enough with Bosun Tardo to convince her to let him down there. So Vina was like, hey, Vina is this NPC in our campaign. This moon elf was like, hey, I can get you down there if you want. I've got a bunch of secret stuff that I know. I can get you in if that's what you want. And so took him down there in the middle of the night, navigating through this secret stairwell that is part of Spelljammer Academy, no longer in use. Kind of alluding to a weird history of Spelljammer Academy. We'll see what happens there. And eventually got him down there. This prison was being kept secretly, kind of 500 feet away from the main island, in this secretive chamber, connected magically by this dimension door spell. And he got down there, was able to talk to his supervisor, saying like, hey, glad to see you're okay. What's going on? Is there any chance, like, what are my next orders? What are we doing here? And found out that, his supervisor might have accidentally got them involved in some shady company, that being of a Mercane. So we got to find that out. And this, was kind of left with the impression that maybe the Mercane aren't really people that we should be getting involved with. But at least I kind of know what's going on. Now he doesn't really have any new standing orders, but it was really clear that Archibald respected his supervisor nonetheless. We continued on with that session. They finished the mission they were on. It was part of a simulation in which they were trying to obtain information from a lockbox, a logbook from a lockbox, and then make it back into Spelljammer Academy. In this simulation still, we had a really interesting encounter with some Githyanki pirates, and the party rescued a stranded student ship in the simulation. And then the simulation ended with a bang, literally, as there was an explosion, and they found out that something was sabotaged. Something didn't go quite right. And that's kind of where that session left off. They had found out that there was some ties and some connection to the Mercane, as Archibald had recognized a symbol on this piece of metal that was jammed in the simulation machine, I guess. And that's kind of what happened. I guess this is leading into this last session for here. And then last week, they began their kind of like big final mission for the Spelljammer Academy series, which is, since all these sabotages have kind of been happening and the simulation chamber is obviously a no-go, now they get to do some field work, and they're tasked with retrieving this adamantine meteor that had crashed into the planet Hakatha. Unfortunately, Hakatha is mostly beholderkin, but upside being they have recently discovered that there's a beholder ship really close to Toril. They can go and uh, obtain this ship, install a Spelljammer helm on it, navigate the beholder ship to Hakatha, hopefully undetected, and then go and retrieve this adamantine meteor. So that's kind of where we began last week's session, and with some faculty and some students to help them along, they boarded the ship. They located it, boarded the ship. There was an alarm that was triggered, a bit of a safety mechanism as the beholder ship began to tumble and turn and spin. Ash and Tess eventually figured out the control schema and through pushing some random buttons, able to stop the rotation. They then explored the holodeck. They explored, this is a different map than I need to be on. They explored the holodeck of the ship, which was the sort of this lower deck. It's sort of the second level up. This deck here, and found some movement in these scrap piles as these two clockwork horrors attacked them. These weird looking things. I think they're a little bit more sci-fi than the Spelljammer campaign feels. It felt more like futuristic than sci-fi fantasy in this setting, but it's whatever. It's totally fine. No one really was bothered by it. Not an easy fight because they had an AC of 18, and it kind of made it a little longer fight than ordinarily should have been. But they did dispatch of these two clockwork horrors, and it was a pretty awesome fight, actually. I thought it was pretty good. There was a bit of movement in a third pile over to the south, and purely without thinking, just acting, one of the characters walked over and just one single shot axe to this pile of movements, rolled a crit, and in a single shot killed off an NPC that was still down there. So that was kind of a funny moment. They didn't know that, and that was just sort of an amusing moment. But that is kind of where we left off. Actually, there was a little bit more after that. They did find some treasure buried. They don't know what's in this little crate that they found, crate and scroll case. But Micken Haverstance came up through one of the connecting little chutes here, and came up coughing and saying, "Oh, there's been an explosion. There's fire. You got to come quick. This is awful." And that's kind of where we left off. So let's get into the notes today. Our characters, we have Ash Skylance, Astral Elf female bard. She kind of, her motivations, wants to be remembered, wants to be part of something important, and just find people that she trusts and accepts, or that accepts her. We have Private First Class, Archibald Sexton Veer Tunstall, who is a GIF artificer, male. I think his motivations are that he wants to do right and kind of clear his name here. He's largely for a big segment of his recent years has been a at-hire kind of mercenary. He's been hired to do odd jobs and make his living. And come to find out, recently he's been involved with some shady people, not at his own choice, kind of by his supervisor, his boss, making some poor decisions, gotten tangled up with the Mercane. And I'm trying to make the Mercane seem like this really big sort of gang leader type entity. We'll see how that goes. Tess Shelby, we have a Shadarkai female monk who's kind of been closed off from the rest of the party so far, and is kind of distrusting and just still really like finding her place in the world and with the party. And lastly is Tatam, and plasmoid male cleric. And honestly, I don't really know what that character's motivations are yet, but he seems to be just kind of going with the flow so far. So those are our characters. I am using Notion for my notes. Roll20 to run the game, and loosely, as far as formatting for my notes goes, is based on the Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. So thanks to Mike Shea at Sly Flourish. Geez, running short on the brain today. So to start, we're starting with an encounter today. The party sees Micken come up through one of these chutes, gets them all to kind of say, "Hey, like, big explosion, there's fire, it's pretty awful. We need to save, Petty Officer Ryback." They go down into the cargo deck. Everything's filled with smoke, and as soon as they come within range of the methods, they are hit with a fire blast. Now, going through the notes, this area is filled with smoke, which reduces visibility to 5 feet, and anything beyond that is heavily obscured. I think it makes thematic sense that these methods would not be subject to the effects of the smoke, meaning that they should be able to see beyond 5 feet. Um, from a design standpoint, somebody like building this encounter, I guess it makes sense that methods would be here, but why put a monster that's going to be obscured by the thing that you're putting down there? So I think the way that I'm going to run it, I know this might not be by the book, but it's whatever. It's my encounter. I think I'm just going to say that, something that is fire based, something that's magma based, coming from an area where there's probably lots of fire and smoke, isn't subject to the effects visibility wise of smoke. So I think that'll kind of like tip the encounter a little bit more towards the middle instead of it being, oh, we just pick these guys off from range or we just walk up and hit them a bunch of times. I think that will kind of skew the encounter more towards the middle. I am planning on having the characters level to level 3 after this encounter. So because I know we're going off to do some much more difficult encounters later on. So I've prepared the map here. I already have some stuff, some elements, some assets that I brought in from Roll20. I just have to move them over to the token layer. I have NPCs for the NPCs that are here. Obviously, we've got Cricklet and Fred. These are NPCs from the Spelljammer Academy adventure itself. I have our player tokens. Last week to Tom, the player was out. So the way that I'm going to run this encounter, he's down here resting already. The way that we played it was his character was out sick, literally in the game. So he's just kind of down here resting, probably unconscious from smoke. So if a player wants to find him and bring him back up, they can do that. Or maybe I'll make that player, make a constitution save or something like that as soon as we start. I don't really want to have, the first hour of gameplay not include this player, but there should be something for him to do that's not simply, oh, he's popped up and he's ready to join the fight. He is going to start knowing some stuff, though. So then I've got Officer Rybeck's token, and I also dropped down some barrels and chests here because they did start with an inventory. When they boarded this ship, they brought in a bunch of supplies. So I put in these assets just to make it a little bit more, realistic in terms of the layout. These are simply assets I brought in from Roll20. I went up to, where did I go? This is the second tab, the art library. Just searched for chest. And you can, if you have a premium account, you can use these things. I don't. But you can click this second part here and go to from web and then get a bunch of these things that you just simply drag in as an asset, and there it is. So I have a series on this channel for all these basics for Roll20 if you want to check that out as well. But just in terms of layout, I wanted to put this there for visual reference. So that is where we start today. And as I mentioned, after this Magma Mephit fight, we have a level up. I think I'm ordinarily the way I do levels up is I have them do it after a rest. We'll kind of see how that goes. It's very likely that after this fight that they're going to have to rest anyways. They've got a long journey to Akatha, so we're going to have some rests there anyways. So after this scene, we probably have some interrogation with Micken. We got to see like what's going on. After that, we have to make the decision to turn around or press on or call for backup. Basically got to see like what they're going to do with Micken. Are they going to call for Bosun Tardo to come pick him up? Are they going to turn the ship around? I'm not sure what they're going to do. So I have a bunch of different things prepared. And then we have the last chapter of Spelljammer Academy, Behold Hakatha, where we go and explore this weird disc-shaped world. I gave myself notes from the text. I looked into, where is it? I think it's right at the very beginning here. All of these, this list of features from Hakatha, I put them into my notes here. Basically giving myself a way to quickly describe this world. I give myself a note, make it alien, make it seem weird and different and unique. It's not just another planet. It's a completely flat planet with a weird spindle on it. This is unlike anything that, we've seen it anywhere before. And this is Spelljammer, so we want to make it weird and cool. So that's kind of what we got going on for today. So I have a list of secrets, things that they can find out, part of today's adventure. Basically, these are all things that are kind of going to point the direction towards Micken being responsible for these sabotages, and him being the one that's kind of been paid off by this Mercane. He's been paid a bunch of money to do all this stuff with the promise that he'll be set off for life. His beloved, his fiance back home. We'll see where that goes. All these clues lead in that direction. Other information. Actually, let's kind of go over this other stuff first, and then I'll get back to other info. So our NPC's Micken, he just wants to be liked. He's tired of being the coward, and this is kind of his last cowardly act. He's probably at this point regretting it after seeing that Officer Ryback actually died from this explosion. After they kind of figure out what's going on, they see that there was a big explosion. There's a bunch of fire. There's magma methods, and obviously Officer Ryback's cookware couldn't have possibly caused this explosion and summon methods. So what's going on? After finding out that this was Micken, they kind of see that like Micken really was not comfortable after seeing that this is what happened. We have Fred, who is a happy-go-lucky plasmoid, and then Cricklet is a little bit standoffish Thri-kreen, here to do a job. And actually, these two NPCs haven't really been as impactful or important as I thought they might be, but that's okay. And then for our monsters, I've done these the same as I've done them before, where I give a link to the D&D Beyond page, and then I just write myself some quick notes in case I don't want to actually go to the D&D Beyond page in the middle of combat. I don't think we'll get to this other stuff, but I have it there just in case. Our treasure, they still need to go through. They have this lockbox in their possession, which has 5 pearls at 100 gold each, and a scroll case with a rope trick spell scroll. This is the thing that they found in this scrap metal when they accidentally killed this auto gnome. They still have it. They just haven't really found out what's in it yet. So to kind of go into this stuff, I guess this is going further into the adventure. If they get to Hakatha eventually, I go to this map, the Spindle Cavern, which, by the way, I gotta promote this site one more time. I think I might have cut that off from the map. It is. Oh, I might have actually. Oh no, it's here on this page. That is this website, crithitbrit.com. Fantastic source of information for this specific adventure. And it's got all sorts of really useful stuff, some guides to how to run this adventure, some tips, as well as some free tokens and free maps. And that's where I got this map from. I think I must have. Oh, they didn't tag their map on this page, but that's okay. So it's certainly better than the map that we get in the free adventure. And by the way, this is also free, so I like free things. But I've made tokens for all of these encounters as well. I have the players' tokens here. I've made tokens for all the NPCs and enemies they might encounter. The way that this is designed, once they land on Hakatha, they do some investigation. They see this spindle. They glance around and do some searching, and they see that they can find these a big section where obviously something big hit and then was dragged to the interior of the spindle, and that's how they kind of follow and find their way to this specific cavern. And they find that this has been drug into the lair of an ogre, and this ogre is currently sleeping, currently dozing. And it is the meteor itself, the adamantine meteor. The whole reason that they're here in the first place is in the interior of this chamber, surrounded by these beholderkin, these gazers and spectators. This encounter is not meant to be a physical fight. It's going to potentially be a very difficult fight if they decide to fight this thing. Mostly, they just need to try to negotiate their way into obtaining this this meteor. They can, debate back and forth with these spectators to see who's going to be the one to guard it, or convince them to leave and they'll watch it. It's not meant to be a fight to the death. If they try to fight all these things, it's not going to go well for them, and it'll probably wake up the ogre too. So we'll see what they do. It's not meant to be a combat encounter, but we'll see. I don't expect them to get past this, but this is kind of the extent of what I have prepared. There are some things beyond this. I might move some things around depending on how players proceed. If they go forward after finding out that Micken is the kind of the one behind all this stuff, and they continue on to Hakatha, then we go to this. If they decide to go straight back to the academy and say, you know what, we've been sent on too many death missions by Tardo. We're not doing this. We're going right back to the academy. We're done doing your stupid lessons. Then we go to something else. We go to this other thing that I was thinking about. I've kind of was realizing going into this session, if we're looking at the future, looking ahead, looking at the events of Light of Xerxes, which is going to start soon, probably in the next session or two, the way that starts, it presumes that the players actually care about the planet, actually care about their home being attacked and want to defend it against whatever is coming against it. Here we have a bit of a problem because no one in my party is from Toril. They're all from space, and Spelljammer Academy hasn't exactly been the greatest to them. And as they're discovering, Spelljammer Academy kind of has a weird, shady past. The academy, the teaching of students, might just be a front, as we're finding out, is playing out in my version of this story. So I don't think that once it's attacked, they're really gonna care. So I was really trying to think about, like, besides straight up railroading the players and getting everybody to say, like, yeah, okay, we agree, we're doing this adventure, so we're just gonna do it. I wanted to give them some reason. I was thinking, like, why would they care? What reason? If they don't care about Toril, maybe it's the people, and obviously it's not Spelljammer Academy because Tardo is not super nice. Serta has been okay. They kind of like Serta, I guess, but I thought I've got an NPC named Vina. They kind of like her. She's kind of standoffish, but she seems to know some stuff. And I also wanted to have a little bit of I wanted to have a session where it's not so intense. It's not doing crazy stuff. It's not doing death missions. I thought, what would make them actually care about Vina and the people at Spelljammer Academy, if not the staff? And maybe because I was recently, I'm listening to the beginning of Critical Role Campaign 2, I thought, well, what if there's like a secret group of students, that they could come to enjoy and like spending time with and hanging out with. And so I had this idea, and I came up with this group. They're calling themselves the After Dusk group because we've recently enacted a bit of a curfew because of all this stuff happening. These sabotages on Spelljammer Academy. Tardo has enacted a bit of a curfew and said, like, please be in your dorm rooms after dusk. Don't be out in the hallways after dusk. All that stuff. Vina will reveal that, like, yeah, this is not the first time this has happened. And so this group of students have been meeting secretly after dusk. That's why they call themselves the After Dusk group, or a little less formally now, just call themselves Duskers. I thought that sounded kind of cool. And she's going to invite them to find this out and to just kind of come and hang out with a secret note in Archibald's bag that reads, third of the week, 1 hour past dusk, locker 477, with this sort of like secret passphrase, the After Dusk awaits, with instructions to bring the other roommates. Locker 477 is just a thing in the gymnasium that they can go to, and it's Archibald because she's already taken Archibald to some secret stuff. And so once they go to this locker, he's going to recognize that there is something off about this, make an Arcana check, all that stuff. They'll get down there, having no idea what this is. And then they'll just get to find out that this is Vina and some other students' secret meeting place. It's a place where they can just go hang out, learn about the academy, and maybe what these students know about their shady past. They can just do some downtime stuff. They can play some music. They can do some games and maybe like feats of strength sort of thing. Just a way to relax and get away from this stuff. And I just really needed a way for them to like the people here and give them a reason to care. Give them a reason to want to progress further in Light of Xerxes. Not because me, the DM, says this is what we're doing and you, the players, have to find reasons. And I'm going to railroad it either way. But I wanted to like give them a narrative reason why they might care. Why they might have some attachment, to Spelljammer Academy. At least enough to pursue this. So that's kind of where I am. So depending on the way that it goes today, if they proceed to Hakatha, we'll do this stuff after they get back, and we'll kind of extend the events of Spelljammer Academy a little bit. If they decide to just tell Tardo to piss off and we're not doing this death mission stuff, here's Micken. You can go and do with him what you want. Give us our 50 gold for finding the source of the sabotages, but we're done. Then we go back to Spelljammer Academy and do this stuff, and Hakatha might get, the strike through line through it, and we might not do that stuff, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I gotta play it by ear. So I think that's probably gonna do it. I'm excited to start Spelljammer Light of Xerixis, because there's some really, really cool stuff in there. Once we get through the I guess the first couple of chapters there, we get to the Rock of Brawl, and boy, am I excited for that. That's a very cool location if you haven't checked that out. So I hope this brings everything up to speed now and we can keep recording these going forward. I apologize for a couple of these missing, but such is life, and you learn and adapt and just move on. So thank you for watching. My name is Jaron. This has been D&D Behind the Scenes, and I'll see you next time.